What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Hangover. This is Victory Monday. Mike Tomlin said it last week. The business is to entertain. Are you not entertained? The Steelers win. My buddy Shannon White with me. Shannon, how are you doing on this Victory Monday?
Well, I'm happy they won, and keeps the season interesting. Moving forward, and because if they wouldn't have it, that would have been a really tough hill to climb over. So they're still relevant.
They definitely are. They're still relevant. First place alone in the AFC North. The Bengals also dropped to the Buffalo Bills, which also is a benefit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if the Ravens lose next week, Steelers win. I mean, they're pretty much a shoe-in for the AFC North. Big game. They beat the Baltimore Ravens 22-27. A game that I think most people would say that they were impressed with the first three quarters. Maybe not so much the last. A little bit of controversy, and let's start off there. Do you think the Rodgers interception catch, was that a catch? And what do you think about the likely touchdown? Not touchdown, actually.
Well, the Rodgers play was accurate call. Okay. I mean, because he had more control than the safety for the Ravens. And at that time, both his knees were down. So that play was dead there, and I think they got that right. That touchdown, not a touchdown, reminded me of the Jesse James 2.0, I'll be honest. I was furious. I'm still furious about Jesse James because that totally changed the whole landscape of the playoffs that year for the Steelers and the Patriots. And I think that could have been a Super Bowl team. I really do for the Steelers that year. And I believe that was the wrong call yesterday. And I despise the Ravens, and I love to see Harbaugh whine. But if I would have been him, I would have got a penalty because I'd have lost my mind, just like I did when the Jesse James. Because here's the thing. There's such a line between the end zone and the field of play. Because when you get into the end zone, the second that ball cracks that white line, the goal line, it's a touchdown. So you'll see guys dive over the top. You see it all the time. Crack the goal line, and then, fumble on the way down. But, they would jerk the ball out. I remember Walter Payton doing it all the time. But it didn't matter because once that ball cracked the goal line, the play is over. It's touchdown. Well, it's gotten so. They tried to come out today and said that he never completed the third step, which, again, if it would have been the Steelers, let's be honest, and the roles were reversed, that's a touchdown, and we would have been furious. And so I want to win, but I don't want to win that way. And now that would have forced the Steelers to go back out there, and because they would have went for two, obviously. And then whether they got it or not, you're either trying to get a field goal to win or tie. I would rather have that where there's no controversy, because I think they were the better team, or they executed better for three quarters. And as you say, once they got the lead, they went conservative again. That's what they do. This is Mike Tomlin's team. They never were able to develop a running game through the whole day. I think they had 30-some yards rushing. So everything was predicated off the pass. So when they got the ball there at the end, I said, one first down, this game's over. They need to, throw something, high percentage, but don't sit on it. And because you're going to run it twice, run it three times, they're going to call the timeout. But they did even worse. They run it twice, ultra conservative, which you knew wasn't going anywhere because they hadn't been able to run the ball all day. And then they threw an incomplete pass to stop the clock. So I'm like, again, this is just common with the Tomlin tenure. At the end of games, he's terrible with time management, play calling, all that stuff sucks. So I'll get that out of the way now. Because there was a lot of positive things yesterday we want to talk about. But I was not I do think that was a touchdown. So I don't like winning the game that way. And I also don't like the ultra conservative play to your fears at the end of the game.
I don't disagree with much, but there's a lot that I do. And so, first and foremost, a player inbounds already with possession of the ball. Yeah, all they have to do is touch the little white line, the very tip of the ball. That's a touchdown. But they have to have possession inside inbounds and things of that nature. The reason why it's a little bit different in the end zone, it's not just about possessing the ball for a brief moment. You have to complete the catch. Now, if we go back to Jesse James, to the letter of the law, and even then, as mad as it made me, and it made me upset. I thought it was a bullcrap call, but when it happened on the field, I told my father, I was in the living room with him. The play happened, and as they were reviewing it, I said they're going to call it an incomplete pass because to the letter of the law, falling to the ground, he can't let the ball hit the ground, and that's what the rule was then. Now, I'll tell you why it was the right rule for both of them, for Aaron Rodgers and for the likely. For Rodgers, and what the difference was, because I think a lot of people are saying, well, Rodgers didn't complete a football move or this or that. But with Rodgers, when he had possession of the ball, he was still on 2 feet. He went to the ground. As he was going to the grounds when he had possession, the knee hits the ground. That's your third foot. And then that's when, after his knee hits the ground, is when the ball is pulled away from his possession. So there's your 3 moves. And with the likely pass, what happened was he caught the ball in front of him with his arms already extended. And so you still need to possess the ball. For instance, if the person caught it on the sideline and it was a tiptoe situation and they got both feet in bounds, and as the third foot was coming out of bounds, if the ball comes out, it's an incomplete pass before the foot comes down. If if his third foot lands out of bounds, it doesn't matter. That's just the completion of the catch. And so he's good. The fact that Likely caught the ball away from his body, he didn't do anything else. He kept the ball in front of him. So he didn't complete a third move. So his third foot, or the third foot, would have had to have come down. And had it been inbounds, had it been out of bounds, had it been out of the end zone, it wouldn't have mattered at that point because the initial possession was in the end zone. But you have to complete the process of the catch. And in that moment, because he didn't extend, like, if we were to look at Jesse James, for instance, today, he catches the ball as he's falling. He has the knee to the ground. The knee counts as 2 feet, and then he extends forward. That would have been a completion today because the extension is the third football move. In this scenario, Likely's arms were already extended when he caught the ball, and he never pulled the ball in. He never pulled the ball away. He kept the ball exactly where it was. And different to like when Roman Wilson had a similar catch earlier this year, Roman Wilson had like 4 or 5 feet down before the ball was knocked out of his hands. And so as much as I agree with you that visually, does it look like a catch? Yeah, but to the letter of the law, whether that happened in the end zone, whether that happened somewhere else, it would not have been a completed pass.
Well, we don't have to waste a lot of time on it, to be honest with you, from the aspect of I didn't know how this was going to go tonight, but
right.
This is one of the things that we can agree to disagree on this. It's not a biggie.
Yeah.
I just, the spirit of football, of competition, I hate that rule. I've always hated that rule. They cannot clarify it enough because they'll end up screwing somebody like they did. Yes, my team won. The Steelers won, but I believe that they got screwed. I don't want to win that way. So, you did a great job explaining it. You sound exactly like the head of officiating that come in and released the statement today, and he explained it the exact same way. And I heard it, and I thought it was BS when he said it. And I don't agree with it. So, I don't know what the community is going to think. But I really, one of the things I told my wife, I really hate that this happened because there's things positives to talk about and take away from this game that are going to be missed because all we're going to talk about and all we're going to hear about is this bad call. And you can look at it, half the people's going to say it's a bad call, half the people's going to say it's the right call. But I'm just done talking about it, to be honest with you. Just from the aspect that I've seen it, that's all that everybody was talking about all day. And I don't want us to be in that same boat. And because I'm sure everybody's heard it all day long.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I didn't catch the head of officiating explaining it, but
Yeah, he said that the one thing he could have done that he had to do and he didn't do was complete the third step.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that and I mean, and if that's what if that's going to be the rule and it's going to be in the rule book, there's like 5 criteria that has to be completed, and he had everything but that. That when it comes to that football move,
Yeah.
to have control, like you mentioned, the only thing he could have done on that play where he was at was the third step, and
Yeah.
he never got that third step down. I'm just saying that anybody that's saying that they agree with that, if it would have been reversed, I'm going to let everybody stand on their character, and they can say, yeah, I've been fine with it. I agreed. That really wasn't a catch. I don't think that was. I think it was a bad call, and that's just I'm being honest. And everybody has the right to their opinion, but what I'm saying is, uh, we're at the point now that the game's over, the season is what it is, and we can move on from it.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. We definitely can. And I'm not saying that that it should not have been considered a catch. What I'm saying is to the letter of what the rules are, it wasn't. And that was the case with Jesse James. And I'll tell
Yeah,
you right
but
now,
what
when you
made me
ask
so
about the
mad
credit,
about the Jesse James is it was called a touchdown
right.
and they reversed it.
Well, so is this
Now,
one.
if it's clear and all the evidence and 100%, then you make that change. If not, you go and same thing with yesterday. It was called a touchdown, and so I'll be honest with you, I was totally shocked when they changed it. I'm like, stuff like that never changes, and it works in the Steelers' favor. Now maybe the Chiefs, especially last year, but it never happens that way for the Steelers. So, but I was hoping that they would go on and win the game into where it wouldn't be talked about so much. But regrettably, that didn't happen.
Yeah. But I mean, you mentioned about those that watch the Jesse James. If it was reversed, when I saw the Jesse James in real life, when it happened, I was the catch immediately excited, jumped up, thought it was a catch. When they showed the replay, and they showed his elbow hit the ground and the ball come out of his hands, and the ball made contact to the ground, I was like, it sucks, but that's not a catch, and we're going to get screwed on it. Not necessarily we're getting screwed on the fact that the refs are going to call it and it's against the rules. It's that's what the rules were at that time. And I was like, man, I knew before the refs came out and said it was not a catch. Just watching it the first time after they did the replay, I was like, we're not going to get this. They're going to call this incomplete because the ball hit the ground as he was going to the ground. And
but again, like
that
I
was
said,
the case.
Jesse called it in the field of play.
Right,
so from his knees, he had not been touched.
Right, but if likely would have,
over, so then he dives forward. If you dive across the goal line with control of the ball, and you break that white line, even if it's knocked out of your hands, that's not a fumble. The play's dead. So that's why that play drove me crazy more than even the one yesterday.
Well, either play, had they happened in the Jesse James play or the likely play, had they happened at the 50-yard line, they both would have been ruled an incomplete pass based on the rules at the time, because they were still going to the ground and the other one was completing the catch. And so regardless if it was in the end zone or not, based on the letter of the law, both of those plays were ruled, they were called correctly based on what the rules were at the time. Do I agree with either one of them? I definitely don't agree with the Jesse James one, but that's a personal reason. But even at the time, I was like, based on what the rule of the law is, or the rule of the NFL is, I knew it was going to be turned over at that moment. And it was a crappy situation. I felt that, like everybody, what is a catch, this, that, and a third. But for what the rules were, they both were called correctly. And in my opinion, had those plays happen at the 50-yard line, they both would have resulted in incomplete passes, because at the end of the day, likely didn't hit his third foot, and Jesse James didn't complete the catch when he went down. As much as I disagree with it, and I wish it would have gone the other way, that's just what the letter of the law was at the time. But let's pass on to this. So as far as what occurred in the fourth quarter, I agree with you with the play calling. I thought they did get a little conservative, but not to excuse it. There was a health issue You lost your left tackle, you lost Darnell Washington, who's basically another tackle that was swinging back and forth. So that probably had a huge effect on the running game. And
Oh, it definitely, yeah.
yeah, and then you also lost some guys on the defensive side, so that probably affected the way you were going to be, calling the plays. Mike Tomlin appeared to be, he even said it, pretty uncomfortable when Patrick Queen went out for the game for a while in the game. As much as I want to say, yeah, Mike Tomlin, dropped the ball, as far as the play calls and time management and things of that nature. I have to look at the fact that they were pretty banged up at the end of the game there, and I'm glad that time ran out. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I like the effort, and I've seen guys. TJ was more active. I liked his effort level. He was more spry. I think he was fired up, being Ravens week.
Yeah.
Highsmith seemed healthier, and he gave out a great effort. I think we've seen a lot of guys really trying. The Ravens running game really didn't start clicking till Harrison got hurt. He got concussed.
Yeah.
And they had to bring in Holcomb. And I love Holcomb, but he's not as physical as Harrison. And he was getting pushed around some. And Benton was losing gap integrity, which is common. And they still didn't have Harmon. Harmon, teams, when Harmon plays, they average about 100 yards less rushing against the Steelers than when Harmon is in there. It's crazy. It's Harmon is that important.
Yeah.
And so hopefully he'll be back soon. But I was really impressed. I thought, what? And I mean, I remember JJ doing the same thing. He would have a flash, a game where he would kind of really show up a lot that, where other games he'd be invisible. But I think when you get to that age and you're starting to not be what you once was, you still have good days and bad, like we all do as we get older. And but I thought Watt played a good game, and I was impressed. And that was one of Patrick Queen's best games as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I guess he was fired up to play the Ravens because he was hitting hard. Halfway, he fought through that hip, acted up again. He showed a lot of toughness. So, it was a hard earned. I mean, it was a hard hitting game. What I think the Steelers had like 5 injuries, 3 of them concussions, which is kind of common after playing these two teams play because, it's a slobber knocker. So, I thought that the defense, you don't have to worry about the Ravens throwing the ball all over the yard on you because that's just not Lamar's game. And he was a little more mobile yesterday, as they talked about incessantly throughout the game, that he looked healthier and more mobile. And that gives the Steelers some trouble, which mobile quarterbacks give everybody trouble. But I just thought that not trying to downplay the importance of the offensive line injuries and stuff of that nature. They just could not get any running game generated or going. And at times, again, they still want to use, they take Warren out when, it's short yardage, and that's, he's your closest thing you got to a power back, and you think he should be in there, and their usage is still questionable. Again, I just think it's part of the problem with this coaching staff.
Yeah, no, I hear you. To me though, I did think that they try to do some things out of the norm, so to speak. I felt like they tried to switch it up. First pass from Aaron Rodgers, a deep pass, accurate pass down the field to DK Metcalf. Rodgers said after the game something to the effect that sometimes at the age of 40, you feel better on certain days than other days, and you wonder what it is. And sometimes it's a beautiful grass field that you're playing on. I think he's kind of taking a dig there at Acrisure Stadium. To be honest with you, what do you think about? Yeah, you definitely can't. I thought it was a much needed performance by Rodgers. He was wearing a softer cast, allowed him to get under center. I thought that really played a pivotal role. and what he was able to do, and how the offense was able to move the ball down the field. What did you think about Rodgers' performance? I thought it was a little bit of a bounce back. What did you think?
Well, again, I think it ain't not wanting to deflect credit, but the Steelers beat average to bad teams, and they get manhandled by good to better teams.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's just be honest. The Ravens are 6-7, and they're really, really average, just like the Steelers. They got a lot of problems, just like the Steelers. One of the problems they have, I think, 19 sacks on the season total. I think Myles Garrett has more sacks than the whole Ravens team.
That's insane.
So therein lies your problem. The pass game looked better. Well, Rodgers had more time, even with offensive line issues, because the Ravens just are not good at rushing the passer. They don't really pressure the quarterback, and if they do, they go, full out blitz a lot to try to generate pressure. And they trust their guys on the backside. So it makes sense that Rodgers should have a breakout game and that DK Metcalf should get man coverage and he should have over 100 yards, which he did. So it's two things. One, they hear fire Tomlin all week. Aaron Rodgers is over the hill, overrated. Metcalf's a bad investment. Wide receivers suck. Everything sucks. They hear this all week. They come out, they beat an average team to a bad team, under 500 team now, let's be honest. They beat them, and now everybody's forgetting all about that. Like, oh, man, we're going to the Super Bowl. No, again, it's quality of opponent. It's what does that opponent do to lose? Now, we see the Colts before their terrible injuries. They turned the ball over 6 times. We've seen the Patriots give the Steelers 5 turnovers. I mean, just lining up and beating the team mano a mano throughout a game and winning a game clean is very hard for this team to do. Because they're not good at attacking weaknesses. Going into a game like the other day, that the Bears didn't have none of their starting defensive linebackers or their starting cornerbacks, and the Steelers really couldn't exploit that. That's just bad coaching. It's bad game planning. It's schematically bad. Nothing changed yesterday. I mean, it kept the Steelers relevant. It kept them in the race to get in the playoffs, maybe. They still got a lot of work to do. They're playing a Miami team's coming in hot. And, hopefully the Monday night, Tomlin and the Steelers are great on Monday night. So hopefully that will help us. But all I'm saying is I'm not jumping back on the bandwagon just yet.
I don't blame you. I don't blame anybody for pausing. I even told my wife yesterday when I was watching the game and towards the end, and as Steelers were, before things were getting even closer, and it seemed like Steelers were going to take it pretty comfortably going into the third quarter. I was like, I don't want to get excited yet. I know how this team is. They're going to end up doing something and just kind of bring me back down to earth. So,
well, that was a Tomlin classic. Just when the boo birds and the vultures start circling, he'll pull one out. We all get lucky. Hey, Pickett's hurt. Let's put in Rudolph, and he has a really good run at the end of the year to get him into playoffs. But the problem is nobody's looking at the big picture. Is that we think, he's done a lot with not a lot of talent since being, and these guys have either moved on or retired and got old. But again, and it's not just him. Front office is drafted like crap until Khan and Waddle took over. And again, Art is not Dan in ownership, but the same problems are still there. But this is just he's a good enough coach. He knows how to get by and keep it slightly better above average. But I'm just done with slightly better above average.
I hear you. I will say this though. To me, the offense seemed a little bit better. The passes seemed more accurately, especially down the field. The quarterback stayed in the pocket longer. It didn't seem like he was bolting out as quickly as he had been. To me, in the passing game, it changed a little. There was some changes in the wide receiver room. We're going to get to that on the other side of the break. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We'll talk more about this football team and where they're headed. Don't go anywhere. Hey, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. Before we get on to the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, stillcurrentnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out once you're done listening to this podcast here. You can find my audio-only podcast there on the website and many more other audio podcasts there on the website. Mine airs on Saturdays called State of the Steelers. Go listen to the one before the Baltimore game. I had given up hope and I chose the Ravens, but not by a lot. I did say that the Steelers would have had an opportunity to win the game. I just had no faith after picking them the last few weeks and them just letting me down over and over again. I don't know where I'm going to be at by the end of this week. I'll let you guys know by then. You'll find out on the State of the Steelers podcast, which airs out on 11 a.m. on Saturday mornings. And so, surprise healthy scratch in Roman Wilson. Adam Thielen, I hope you're feeling good. Goes out there and plays. We saw a little bit of MSV. Were you surprised that Roman Wilson didn't get a helmet?
No, they've resisted using him since they drafted him. But especially even this year, Rodgers tried. He said the right things, but you could just see there wasn't any chemistry there. Young guys, quarterbacks, especially older quarterbacks like Rodgers, are a lot like Tomlin. They want the experienced guys because they have more faith in them to run the right route, not make the big mistake, which we've seen Calvin Austin make mistakes this year on some of his routes. But Roman Wilson just don't have the experience. The only problem is you don't get experience unless you get to play. So if they're not going to use him, you could look at the tape. There's different times he's open, and they're not even looking his way. So if the quarterback's not even going to look at you, there's no reason to dress. I don't care if it is two old guys. I wanted Adam Thielen 3 years ago, and I wrote an article about it. And I thought he would have been a really good Steeler. Now he's past his expiration date. He wanted to finish out the year somewhere he might get some playing time. So, he was willing to come to Pittsburgh. Now they signed him off waivers, so it wasn't like he voluntarily did, but he's I guess he could have went somewhere else. But hopefully he'll get a little usage. I still think he can run routes, and I think he has good hands. And if he makes a big catch or two down the stretch, it'll be worth it. Now, I've never been a Valdes-Scantling fan. I just think he's a kind of a one-trick pony, as Tomlin used to call Wallace. But if he can hit one of them or two of them tricks deep down the field, that might be worth it. Just something to keep all the attention off Metcalf, which I think that might have helped some yesterday. But again, I still go back to the fact that the Ravens cannot pressure the quarterback at all. They've proven that. I think they're the lowest or the next to the lowest in the league in sacks. So they are really bad at pressing the quarterback, especially just straight up without massive blitzing. And so I think that had as much to do with Metcalf having a breakout game as did having Thielen and Scantling.
Got you. I think that you definitely have a lot of points there, but I think that Aaron Rodgers has to trust his guys. And, to me, going into the season, once the Steelers got Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people were going to, were saying, how long was it going to take before this team was shaped in Rodgers' image, so to speak, where he started to acquire, his friends and the players that he wants to fit on the team. And here we are. We got some veteran players, some people that I think he trusts on the team. And he talked about the practice and how it was more serious. and that he even brought up the receivers, I guess, being part of the game plan and that being a focal point. And I think he just kind of trusts these guys are going to be where they're supposed to be at the right time. And so, he's making throws with anticipation and stuff without hesitation and without having to think about if the guy's in the right spot where he's supposed to be at. Um, and I think that's what we saw in display. Adam Thielen had said that he felt rejuvenated, felt like a younger man, going out there and being a part of the rivalry between the Steelers and the Ravens, and genuinely happy, out there and to be a part of a team that is still playing for something. Steelers are now first place, so they got something to play for. If they can stay healthy, which is another question mark because these guys are older, and as we've seen during the game, nutrition becomes an issue at the end. Once you're older, it takes a little bit longer to heal up too. So if they're healthy and they can, stay on the same page, I think they can build off of this. I kind of felt like with Adam Thielen out there, although they still didn't target him a lot or anything like that, but I just felt like the passing game was better. If they were more efficient with the passing game, it seemed more fluid going up and down the field until the fourth quarter, obviously. And then, but I think part of that was the injury aspect. How huge is the loss of Darnell Washington? I mean, I think that was one of the reasons why the running game was so bad. He's in the concussion protocol. Yeah, it's a coin flip if he's going to be back or not. How are they going to replace him?
No, he's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
There ain't nobody you can bring in that can mimic what he does. Like he's an extra tackle who can run routes and catch the ball. That was a huge blow, as you say, to the running game and the passing game, because when he was tackled, the guy just went straight for his lower leg and his shin, and he got upended. And then Hamilton come in and give him a shot from the side. Now, they was talking about, oh, what a hit. Not really. He was off the ground because he got undercut by a guy going low. And if Hamilton would have hit him like that and he was running on his feet, he'd have probably just bounced off of him. Because that's just how big Washington is. Hamilton's a heck of a player. I'm just saying that Hamilton's given up 50-some pounds at least. More than 50. What am I saying? Maybe 80 pounds to Washington. So he wouldn't have took Washington down like that. Let's put it that way. But they need him moving forward. We need him healthy because he's a huge part of the passing game. Because he'll take a 5-yard pass and make it a 10-yard pass because he runs over people for 5 yards. And that's in the way this passing game is set up. But I'll say this, you mentioned Thielen wasn't really targeted a lot. And he wasn't. But as you mentioned earlier, I used to get so aggravated watching George Pickens half run routes, which is popped up in Dallas now, but we knew it would. But when he does that, the defensive backs, we've watched them realize he's not really running a route and come off him and make interceptions or make tackles because they realize he's not really even looking. He ain't trying to sell it at all. See, that means you're playing with one less guy. Well, the Steelers have had Darius Hayward, they've had Jefferson, they've had Robertson, they've had multiple receivers that just blocked and they never threw him the ball. Skowronek now, but Skowronek, he did have a catch, yesterday. But they always have one receiver they don't go to. Well, then if you got a guy who's not really a threat, they was running Roman Wilson on all these routes, but he really wasn't getting the ball. So then the defense could cheat even more to Metcalf, Gainwell, and Washington, right? So just having Thielen out there, and I guess to a lesser degree, Van Der Scouting, to a lesser degree, they wasn't able to cheat as much because they didn't know maybe they're going to throw it to Thielen. So just having them out there was more of a threat than what it would have been if they just kept trotting Wilson out there, because for whatever reason, they're just not going to throw it to him.
Yeah. I would say if there's a game that the Steelers are going to target Thielen a little bit more, and some of the other games. I wouldn't be surprised if that starts happening against the Detroit Lions. Now, here's why. I think they're going to show the same type of thing that they did. Now, this my opinion, right? I think they might show, Thielen, and if defenses are still doing their thing where, something similar to what the Ravens did, kind of respecting Adam Thielen and stuff. I think we're still going to focus more on DK. The reason why I think by the Detroit Lions game is that's putting 2 games on film where you're still not targeting these guys, and that might catch defenses going back to targeting, DK, and maybe perhaps a game against, the Lions where you're going to have to put up some points. Your defense, I don't know if they're going to be able to hang. They got a running game. They got a passer that can throw the ball. They got some receivers. So you're going to have to score some points. And I think that in those type of games, if you can go against your tendencies and stuff, you might be able to surprise some teams. And maybe that's the game where you want to maybe focus in on some of the other wide receivers. But, I think that it definitely helped. I think DK had some more favorable matchups on the outside. And like I said, I just felt like the offense was moving better through the first 3 quarters. At the end, they got conservative. They wanted to waste timeouts and waste time and things of that nature. And so, probably not the best approach in today's NFL right now, because teams can put up points at a high rate. And if you start packing it in too early, 2-minute warnings and especially if teams have, timeouts, I mean, that can really prolong the game. So, defensively, we talked a little bit about it. Keanu Benton went down with an injury. He was able to go back in. There's a nose tackle that just hit the waiver wire out of, I believe, the Chargers. His name escapes me off the top of my head. Do you think that the Steelers should make a move to bring in another guy up front? Derek Harmon, he's been dealing with some injuries throughout the entire year. Unknown if he's going to be coming back this week. He wasn't put on IR, so I think many of us can expect that he wouldn't take full 4 games off. I mean, I know he's only been off 2. Do you think that they will expect him back this week? And if not, do you think the Steelers should make a move for a nose tackle to bring in somebody while you're still dealing with some injuries with Ben?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it before the podcast. I should have looked the young man's name up, but he's a veteran. Started or played substantial minutes in 8 games for the Chargers.
Yeah,
I think the last name might have been Davis. But anyway, he the Steelers could use some meat on that interior because, like I said, Benton is not really an interior defensive tackle. Hayward's becoming more of that. If we notice, Black is giving them some solid minutes, but he's kind of hit a little bit of the rookie wall, I believe, not being quite as dominant at the point of attack. So yeah, I wouldn't be against putting in a waiver claim and see what happens.
Yeah, I would hope they do it. I'd hope they do it. And his name is Naquan Jones, nose tackle from the
Jones.
Chargers.
I knew it was a common last name. I couldn't remember.
He's on the waiver wire. Injuries are a part of the game. Daniel Jones has gone out again with another injury, and it seems like they're bringing back Phillip Rivers, a blast from the past.
Well, they're talking to you. I'm like, wow. I mean, but all their guys are injured. Riley Leonard, and Anthony Richardson. Jones, that was sad because Jones had really turned things around there. I think he was a great fit in Indianapolis. Seems like a good kid. And that was just sad, man. It's always sad for a guy to get hurt, but especially in having such a big comeback season and then to get hurt like that, that was disappointing for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Achilles is not a easy one to come back from. I don't know if he had a complete tear because he was walking off the field. I had a complete rupture. I could tell you my foot was just dangling. There was no
You wasn't walking off, right?
No, I tried. I took a step and I fell down.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world happened there? And it's not fun. It's a long process, but it can be a year, and this is very late in the season to have an injury like this to have occurred. I don't know if this is going to take him out for part of next year. I'm sure the beginning of the season is in jeopardy for him. I don't know what his contract situation was like either. I don't know if he was on more than 1 year deal, but unfortunate for him, and hopefully he heals up and things like that. But injuries are a part of the game, and they're looking to get Philip Rivers. I mean, imagine that if the Steelers somehow face the Indianapolis Colts in the playoffs, and it's Rodgers versus Rivers. Some of these names in that game, you would think it's a 2019 playoff game.
Yeah.
If it were to happen, I would love it. I would love it if the Steelers could host the Indianapolis Colts in a playoff game. I think that would be one that I think most fans would think that the Steelers could have an opportunity to win.
Oh, that would be interesting. You'd have, AARP commercials and
Insure.
Yeah, exactly. Insured. It'd be great. It'd be a marketing dream.
Yeah, well, me and you we'll benefit from some of those commercials. That's for sure.
Well, more me because I'm older.
Oh man, the injury history I have. I mean, you'd have thought I played for the Steelers at this point. But no. To me, I thought it was a positive win. It didn't sway me all the way over to the extent where I'm like, yeah, we're gonna move. We're a contender now. I think that this game was more so a confidence builder, and that it can, if they build off of this confidence and can build off of it, can turn this team into a dangerous team come the playoff time. But they have to be able to build out the confidence. What they've shown that they have done in the past, of recent past, is that they get cocky and they, lollygag in practice. They think that it's owed to them and stuff like that. These are things that are said in post game, in press conferences, in interviews by the players. Like, oh, we didn't have that good of a practice. People weren't focusing. Why isn't that they aren't doing that? It's because they're getting too high on themselves. Now, if they can build off the confidence correctly, now, as much as we joke about the old guys in the room, but these guys are experienced and know how to build off that confidence and hopefully not allow for that attitude that has plagued the Steelers when they've done something good in the past to derail them, can build off of it. I think it's a good first step to doing something, being at least not embarrassed in the playoffs. Let's put it that way, because we can do good and end up 9-8 again. The Steelers can end up 9-8. They can beat, the Ravens or they can beat the Browns and the Dolphins and lose the other two games, end up 9-8 and in the playoffs and blown out in the first round of the playoffs. And we're back to square one where we've been for the last 9 years, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think that, this is going to go one of two ways. There's pride matters. Pride, being proud of the organization you play for, the city you play in, the name on the front of the jersey and the name on the back of the jersey. There's names of teams that go down in history, the Cardiac Kids, or, we just lost Marv Levy, who passed away today, and who I think was just a great man. I loved his enthusiasm and his love for his players. And, God, say whatever. A guy who makes it to 4 straight Super Bowls is doing something. Now, they didn't win them. None of them. That was very sad, but I'll give credit where credit's due. And, but I remember in '89, the Steelers getting embarrassed and blown out the first 2 games of the year. And the team was, everybody was similar, blow them up, get rid of this team, that they suck, and everybody turned, and eventually that team made it into the playoffs and won a game and almost won another. They really rallied around each other, kind of like the Pirates in '79, we are family type thing. They just kind of, looked inward and found the intestinal fortitude to be something and finish the year. That's what this team needs to do. I don't know if they can. I hope they have the heart and the character, and that they care enough to fully invest. Because as you say, there's a lot of times they have a big letdown and a drop off, and they can't do that. This team's going to have to fight and scrap and do everything because this season, regardless of how it ends, Daniel, it's a new everything next year. There's so many 1-year contracts. A lot of these guys are not going to be back. It's going to look totally different. Even if nothing happens with Tomlin, I believe a lot of these coaches and coordinators are gone.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a whole new look, Pittsburgh Steelers next year, starting with the draft. You know, that's going to be kind of your jumping off point, whatever happens there. But so really they just need to go all in, commit everything for what's left of this season and make the best of it. And I'd like to see a little run at the end of the year like they had in '89.
Yeah. Real quick, though, Marv Levy did not pass away.
Huh?
Marv Levy did not pass away.
Oh, I could have sworn I read that earlier.
No, I was on Facebook, but it wasn't real.
Oh, thank you, Lord. I thought he passed.
Yeah, no.
I should have did more research. I just seen it and I thought of that.
No, Facebook got me too, man. I thought George Pickens' dad was Carl Pickens from the Bengals for the longest time.
Well, I definitely apologize for that because I thought that, and I was sad because I really like Marv Levy.
Yeah. No, I was like, man, I didn't hear that, and I was let me double check this, and I looked, and it says no, he celebrated his 100th birthday on August 3rd, 2025. He's still alive and living in Chicago. And he's still good to go.
Somebody posted it on our Slack channel, and I even responded, but I guess I never seen anything to correct me.
Oh, geez, I didn't see that one earlier. Maybe I don't know. AI is saying no. There's a bunch of things saying that it's not true.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah.
I hope so too. But I hadn't seen that, and I was like, what? And I was like, man, I missed that. But no, regardless, he's a great coach, and the Bills went to 4 Super Bowls and came back with a goose egg, and that's another team that we might have to see again. If the Steelers win the division, and I don't think Buffalo's in the lead, right? They're in they're in the wild card because the Patriots are in the lead in that division. Yeah. And so the Steelers see him again. They'll see him in Pittsburgh, not on the road. So that'll be a good thing if the Steelers make it to the playoffs. What would it take for you to start turning around though on this team, to start thinking, all right, this team could be a contender? I'm not certain that a win on Monday night against a team like the Dolphins could turn everybody, but what would it take? Would it take another win? Do they have to win 10 games? What would it take for you to feel more confident in the team?
Well, I think that they could conceivably win 3 of the 4 games. And then the Detroit game in Detroit against that offense and that coaching staff, it's going to be tougher. Mm-hmm. They don't match up well with Detroit at all. But I think that they have a chance in these other games. If they can hold court and win the games they're supposed to win and win the division and have a home game in the playoffs, then we'll have to see.
Yeah.
That would be, again, like I said, before the season started, I said the Steelers did what they did because it's actually the start of a rebuild disguised as one more attempt to give Hayward and Watt a chance, an opportunity to win a playoff game. And a legit opportunity because they've made it a few times, but they get blown out. It ain't even competitive. So this year was let's try something different. And I like that because I realize what they're doing and how many contracts is going to be coming off the books and the money they're going to have, the draft capital. They are set up to start a rebuild next year. So this year, you got to be all in, committed. So, if they can win 3 of their last 4, then I'll think, well, they might have an opportunity to do like we've seen teams do in the playoffs and win a couple of games like Jacksonville Jaguars, when they knocked the Steelers out, or even Cleveland when they beat Pittsburgh. If if you could go in on a roll and you're good at something, the Steelers got to figure out what they're good at. Because right now it changes. It's not consistent. And they need to find some consistency.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Looking at the playoff picture right now, I think that if the Steelers can get in the dance and with who's there, I was always concerned about some of the teams that were there. And I'm like, hey, Steelers get in there, they got to play, the Chiefs in the first round, they're getting blown out. Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs this year. If the Buffalo Bills, they might make the playoffs, but if the Steelers have to go to Buffalo, I think that's a blowout. In Pittsburgh, although I know that they just lost to Buffalo, I think they can. It's not a automatic blowout game. I think they can be competitive with Buffalo, but that's one game that does concern me. But you look at some of the other teams, the Broncos. They're playing really good football. They're a good, solid team, but they're not a team that I don't think that the Steelers can't beat. The Patriots, the Steelers already beat them once. Granted, it took a lot of turnovers and things of that nature. Will they have some similar success? Maybe. We also have to remember that was week 2, and the Steelers offense didn't have much of the preseason or any of the preseason to work together and things of that nature. And let's be honest, they're still kind of working to get better.
Seattle in week 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. They lost to Seattle in week 2. Then that was the Patriots was week 3, was the win in week 3. So it was still early on. They only had 2 games under their belt, and the Patriots too only had 3 games under their belt, and they've gotten better obviously since. And so, it would be a good game, coached. Very well coached. But I do think that when it comes to Mike Tomlin and Mike Vrabel, that Mike Tomlin seems to have his number, whether it was in Tennessee or wherever he's been. And so, that's a winnable game. The Jacksonville Jaguars are right now leading the South. That's a winnable game. If they somehow fumble it out and the Indianapolis Colts with Rivers come in, I still think that's a winnable game. And then you got Buffalo, which is the kind of a concern for me. I think that's the biggest threat for me. And then the Chargers behind them, they're a good, solid team, but if they're not winning their division and the Chargers have to come to Pittsburgh, I like that game more. And then right now, rounding it off is the Texans. Again, Texans having to go to Pittsburgh. I like that game in Pittsburgh there. If the Steelers make it, they're winning the division, so that game would be in Pittsburgh. Behind them on the bubble are the Colts and the Ravens and the Chiefs. And as I mentioned, I highly doubt the Chiefs are getting in with the situation they have and the tiebreakers. They would really need a lot of teams to fold, buckle, and them go in front of them because of these tiebreaker situations. So if there's a year that the Steelers can make something happen, and it not be that they had to be, humming on all cylinders at 100%, I would say it's this year. What do you think?
I mean, you watch the games and there's nobody you say just dominant.
Yeah.
I mean, Denver figures out, again, they're coached well. They figure out ways to win. Nix is a solid quarterback. Mm-hmm. But, again, they don't scare you. I think the Patriots are really young, and they've been assembled very well. Great coaching, a lot of talent. May has been much better already than I think a lot of people thought he would ever be, and he's only getting better. So, but, I don't expect them to turn the ball over 5 times again if the Steelers get to play him, but because if that hadn't happened, that would have probably not have been a good game for the Steelers. So, but anybody can get hot one game, but again, you have to be aggressive. You have to throw across the middle. You have to throw deep. You have to, even yesterday, most of the throws across the middle early on was to Washington until he got knocked out or concussed, and they still are leery of going over the middle. So I'm hoping that, maybe they'll do that a little bit more with a guy like Thielen that they trust to be in the right spot and run his route, So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll tell you what, if the Steelers were in the NFC, I'd be a little bit more worried. Those NFC teams are they got some offensive power, and the Steelers haven't done so well this year against the NFC. And so,
But even the Eagles are showing holes.
Yeah.
It's not the same, and they're the defending champs. So, as you say, this was the year to try what they tried,
Hmm.
and then kind of have a under the radar rebuild start.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what they've done. And so at least it's been different and interesting. If they could somehow, still contend for the division all the way to the last week.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the next two games are going to be pretty telling. I think if the Steelers go in, they'd have to beat, for me, they'd have to beat the Dolphins. I mean, they don't got to blow them out, but they gotta win convincingly. They got to win as if they are a team winning their division, going up against a subpar team. Looking at draft, where they're going to be drafting next year. They need to beat them as such, treat them as such, so to speak. I think Ramon Foster used to say something like that. We'll treat them as such. They got to treat them that way. And if they go out there and do that, and then can be competitive against, the Lions, I think that. I know that's, some people are going to be like, oh, you're looking at a moral victory and a possible defeat there against the Lions. And, no NFL team does that, but we're fans and, and we're not on the NFL team. To me, that would show well. I mean, if they go out there and win the next two games, I mean, the confidence should be through the roof at that point. And then going against, a Cleveland team after that, which would most likely leave the last game against the Ravens, a game that maybe hopefully we'll see Will Howard at that point if things go that well. But I think these next two games are going to be important and how they perform. If they drop the game to the Dolphins, I think by the fourth quarter, if they're losing, if they're getting blown out, or it's just not looking good, the Fire Tomlin chants are going to be coming back really, really quick. I think it's a short leash. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think most people's kind of like us, they're like, well, this is kind of classic Tomlin. Now this is what we want to see. What happens this week? Can they put back-to-back solid performances together? Can we start to see that sustainable improvement that has been lacking for so many years? They seem like they peak. They play their best football about week 10, week 11, and then it's just, downhill without some major change. That was what made the Rudolph run so pleasant and so enjoyable, is it came out of nowhere, and then it just totally give the Steelers an offense. And they've really not been able to duplicate that for any amount of time, hardly. They've had a couple of good games under Russell Wilson there, and Rodgers had a couple of good games. But again, it's sporadic. I think we all would like to see some consistency. And that's what we need to see these next few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Christmas is usually a month to remember. It's not been that way for the Steelers outside of that Mason Rudolph year.
Yep.
For a few years now, there's been a lot of, collapses at the end of the season. I mean, the Steelers played bad in the middle part of the season. I think they went like 2-5 at some point throughout these last few games. You can find a 7-game stretch where they only won 2 games out of those 7. If they end up winning majority of the last games, we've looked at it before. We looked at it last year where the Steelers went on a little bit of a run early in the season, then collapsed at the end. And we've always said that it's always better to go in, hot, so to speak, or getting hot at the right time. I mean, the Steelers still can have that opportunity here, but one game at a time, and don't get your hopes up too high because you might be brought down to earth real quick. But I'm gonna be cheering for them this weekend or this Monday night, and if they win and the Bengals take care of the Ravens, and the likelihood of the Steelers winning the division is super high.
Now, one thing everybody's got to remember. The way it's set up now, Will Howard, they cannot play him unless Rodgers and Rudolph are injured. He's the emergency quarterback. You can't just bring him in for a series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to, see him. I do, and see what they might have. But the problem is when he's emergency inactive, he's emergency 3 quarterback. that's the only way he gets in the game. And that's not a good thing. So it would have to be like you say, that they're either they've won the division the last week of the year or they're eliminated with a couple of games to go. It would be the only way that we're going to see Will Howard.
Yeah. And I hope we do, and I hope it's because we're going into the playoffs and we can take the last week off and allow Rodgers to completely heal. By then, his wrist should have been 100% back, as long as he doesn't have any kind of setback or things of that nature. And we'll see. Stranger things have happened at the end of years and at the end of the year, and so it's still early. There's still a lot of football to go. We're going to be here. I'm going to be here on Saturday. You're going to be here Wednesday, I believe, on the Pump Your Brakes. Is that correct?
Yes. Wednesday at 8, we'll have Pump Your Brakes, and we've had some really fun banter and interaction with the community, there's so many ways to look at things, and sometimes you got your mind made up, fixed this way, and somebody else say, well, what about this? And it's good. It's kind of therapeutic for us to all talk and discuss this, because you got to vent somewhere.
100%. Well, guys, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, give us that 5-star rating. You guys know what to do. We'll be back tomorrow on we won't, but Still Current Network will be back tomorrow night on the Big Brosco Show, and then our buddy here, Shannon White, will be on Pump Your Brakes on Wednesday. So a fun week packed with Steelers content and news. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, 5-star rating. You know what to do. Shannon, take us out, my man.
Woo!